Hey guys, Spatterju here, and as promised, here's some more content. Also, whenever we talk about guns, we also want to put this up. Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. A well regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I am Spatterju. I am your host. This episode is brought to you by my fat ass. So I wanted to go over just a few of the firing systems common in handguns. One is the single action, one is double action, and one is striker fire. So you may have heard those terms and not know what they mean and not know how to use YouTube. I just want to tell you from my standpoint, give you my understanding and what I know. And hopefully I can do it in an entertaining way. So way back in the West, when they had the 6-shooters, you had 6 bullets in your cylinder, and in order to fire each one of those, you had to pull the hammer back. Pull the hammer back, pull the trigger. The hammer would go forward, hit the brown, and it would go off. You pull the hammer back again, that would rotate the cylinder. Well, technology advanced pretty quickly, and they came up with a double action, which allowed you to pull the trigger, and it would cycle the hammer back for you and then strike it forward. Therefore, you didn't have to pull the hammer back every single time. However, most of your modern wheel guns will allow you to pull the hammer back so that you can get that single action shot. It's very light trigger pull. Each time you fire a single action, it's dramatically different than a double action. However, one of the best representations of a single action trigger, and if you are or know someone who owns a 1911, that is one of the best and most crisp, defined trigger pulls on the market. Fight me about it. And I just so happen to have a good representation of one. I have a Kimber 1911, chambered in 45 ACP, as well it should be. This is a 1911, and this weapon is clear. If you'll notice, when I brought it on camera, even before I brought it on camera, the breech was locked in the rear position. And that way, whenever I'm going to do a demonstration or I'm going to be handling this firearm, I want to be able to see light. Should be able to see through there. I'm trying to hold it where the camera can see. There you go. You want to be able to see light through there. You also want to be able to see that there's no round in the chamber. That means this weapon is perfectly safe to handle. If you treat every weapon as if it is loaded at all times, you will always handle a weapon safely. So this weapon is perfectly safe to handle at this point. This is a very good example of single action. And if you have the hammer forward to begin with, whenever you have, and I'm going to go through this because the example of double action I have doesn't have a hammer, at least that you can see. So I want to do it with this. So this being single action, your 1911 is designed to be carried cocked and locked. This means cocked and then locked is your safety. Okay. This has a thumb safety on it. Most 1911s have this thumb safety. It also has a grip safety. So even with the safety off, this gun will not fire. You have to have this employed. Your hand has to be on the grip safety, and the slide safety has to be down as well. And then let's not forget the main safety, the one in your head. Okay. And as long as you're handling every firearm as if it is loaded, you should be handling it in a safe manner. So the 1911 is designed to be carried cocked and locked. That's cocked. This is locked. So when I have this in my holster, and this is the holster I mainly carry it in. It is this is not a Phobos. It was a knockoff. I don't know who makes it, but it's one that clicks around the trigger guard. So when I carry this on my hip, that's how it looks. And let's see. Yeah, you can see it there with the hammer back. There's nothing that can make that hammer go forward. You cannot make that hammer go forward until the trigger is released. Well, this holster guards the trigger, but you can't hit the trigger until this is depressed and the safety is off. So even with the safety off, this would have to be depressed. Well, you can't get to the trigger. So this is a pretty safe way to carry this. And to extract this particular holster has a little paddle button here that you can come out at that point, and your finger, because of where you had to extract it, it's right in line with where it needs to be, because your finger never needs to be on that trigger until you're actually ready to deploy around downrange and destroy whatever's at the end of this barrel. So whenever you handle a firearm, always just make a conscious effort to use that pointer finger. And that way, in your mind, you know where the barrel is being pointed, okay? So this is designed to be carried cocked and locked. If you were to carry this, and some people will try to make the case that you should carry it like this, well, first of all, almost all of your modern 1911s have what they call a Schwartz block built into the upper. So once that hammer is forward, but the trigger has not been depressed, you cannot hit this hammer and make a round go off. So is this the safest way to carry? Maybe, but it's not the most ready way. So if you're going to have a 1911 to carry, do you have to always now I'm ready? Or even more so, like carry one empty or not having one in the chamber? That's a silly argument. So every time you pull the weapon that you want to use, now you have to, no, that's just not practical. You need that weapon ready to go. So we put the safety on, we have a round in the chamber, you have the hammer back. That's the way the 1911 is designed to be carried. It's designed to be handled. And there will people that will fight you on whether or not the 1911 has the best trigger pull ever. And this one is right at about, and I measured it, it's right at about 2 pounds. 2 pounds of pressure is all it takes to push this little trigger back and release that hammer. Well, you gotta have the beaver or the grip safety as well. Now we go. All that took was 2 pounds. Very, very crisp trigger. Very defined, easy to, when it's going to break. There's virtually no take up. And when I say take up, I mean the distance between when you start to pull and it actually releases. So at that point, you apply 2 pounds and that it goes off. It's a very, very nice, clean, crisp trigger pull. All right. Well, that's pretty much it for the single action. Let's move to double action. Now, I'm going to leave it with the slide locked back like that, just so I know when I go to pick it up, it's easy to look at and I can tell that it's clear. This is my Glock 43X. This is what we're not going to go over that right now. I went from single to we're going to do double. So double action. So what I'm going to use for double action, and this will be kind of short because I can't show you the hammer in this. This is actually a Taurus 650 and it does not have an exposed hammer. It has an internal hammer. So like all weapons, we verify that the cylinder is empty. There's no rounds in here. There's nothing down the barrel. If you ever want to look down the barrel, you can look down the barrel, use an optic, or look from the operator end. Never look down the barrel from the business end. So this weapon is now safe to handle. So when I'm talking about that long trigger pull, and with the 1911, you saw how little my finger had to move, right? As far as distance. Obviously, you can't tell by watching the video how much pressure it took. Well, this takes considerably more pressure, but it also has to travel a lot longer. If you'll watch the cylinder here, it will rotate when I pull the trigger about halfway back, and then I have to pull the trigger all the way from here to there. And that's like 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. That's a long trigger pull. Not the most optimal for self-defense, but we'll do it. See how it's starting to rotate the cylinder? There you go. And so it goes through the rounds that are in the cylinder each time you pull that. Now watch there be some FUD in the comments telling me, you can't dry fire a revolver. It's my revolver. And I'll dry fire it if I want to. There's absolutely no harm done to the revolver in this video. But that gives you an idea of how long that trigger pull is, okay? So we'll leave the cylinder open on that. Now, let's go to the striker fire. Glock 43X. Notice how when I pick that up, see where my finger's at? It's not in the trigger area, okay? Even though we verified that this weapon is clear. There's nothing in the chamber. There's no magazine in the weapon. We know this weapon is perfectly safe to handle. So, striker fire, I like to compare the firing pin mechanism to a pinball machine. If you've ever played pinball on a real pinball machine, not video, but a real pinball machine, you know, when you go up to it, normally on the right-hand side, there's the ball with a spring. It's got a spring on either side. You pull that ball back, you let it go. That's kind of how a striker fire system works. So you have this captured firing pin in place, and there's a mechanism to block it to keep from, you know, inertia being able to hit the primer cap on the round. So you can't do it until you're actually pulling the trigger. But in essence, you have a floating pin with a spring on either side, and then you have a mechanism that as you pull the trigger and it comes up, it will just come up and pull that trigger, that firing pin back far enough and let it go. Boom. So it's not as hard and long a trigger pull as, say, a double action, but it's definitely not as crisp either. It's a little spongy. Glocks are notorious for that. And this has the stock Glock trigger, and the safety on the Glocks are built into the trigger. I'll try to hold that up to the camera close enough so you can see it. So you can see that little tab sticking out right there. See, I'm pushing it. That's your safety. So you don't have a breech lock safety or hammer because obviously there's no exposed hammer or anything, at least on the exterior, that you can do to make the thing, put it into a safety mode. But the safety is in that trigger. So you literally, that's literally why you need to keep your fingers away from that trigger until you're ready to destroy what's at the other end of that. But your safety is actually built into that trigger. So when you put your finger on that tip, that will then unlock and allow you to pull the trigger. It's not a very hard trigger pull. It's probably about, I don't know, 4 pounds maybe. It doesn't go as long. It's not as hard as a double action trigger pull, but it's definitely not as crisp and clean. This is my primary carry weapon. The reason why I choose to carry it over my 1911, because I love my 1911, mainly because the amount of ammo I'm able to carry in it. So 15 rounds of 9mm is better than, 7+1 rounds of 45 ACP. And, your opinions may vary. But generally, that's going over the action of 3 different types of firing mechanisms that are employed while into modern firearms anyway. So forgive me if I'm stumbling over some of this stuff. There's a lot of stuff going through my head, and I want to put out good quality content that makes sense. So when you're looking at this video, you can walk away from it and hopefully have learned something, or at least be entertained, right? So anyway, I appreciate each and every one of you being here. I appreciate the patronage, and hopefully you get as much enjoyment out of watching it as I do making the content. This video I do will probably be on shotguns. I have a couple of shotguns that I would like to go over with you guys, let you see that, and we'll go over the action of those too. So in the meantime, I am Smatterchew, and I do approve of this message. Thanks for watching. Smatterchew out.